Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Spina Bifida Association's Community Information Session. Parent perspectives for, this is the wrong thing. Billy talking about his life experience. This session will include key concepts and that Billy will share for you with living the best life that you can live regardless of the situation. My name is Judy Thibodeau, and I'm a member of SBA staff. For this session, I'm joined by my colleagues Juanita Panliner, SBA's National Resource Manager, and Stephanie Myers, SBA's Corporate Development Manager. I want to mention a few things before we get started. You will remain muted throughout the session. You're welcome to submit questions using the Q&A feature on Zoom. Everyone who registered for this event will receive a link to the recording. Closed captioning is enabled. If you have any technical issues, please send a text to Juanita Panliner, 202-487-3988. This session is being recorded. Now, I'm pleased to introduce tonight's speaker, Billy Price. At 18, Billy Price fell headfirst from a window to concrete, breaking his neck and lower back. The fall caused a spinal cord injury and left him paralyzed from the chest down, affecting all four of his limbs. His mind went to a negative place, but with the support from many, he chose to embrace life. In time, Billy founded Billy Footwear. Alongside an incredible team, Billy strives to add value to the lives of others and make a measurable difference in the world, one foot at a time. Welcome to you and the community, and to Billy.
Judy, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here. All right, everyone, let me share my screen and we will jump right in. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm Billy Price, and this is going to be a presentation, and the title of this presentation is Mindset, Reframing Challenges as Opportunities for Growth. So we're going to start off with touching on a little bit of my story, and then that'll ladder into basically the founding of the shoe company Billy Footwear. And then towards the end, I'll talk about a little bit of the life lessons that I've kind of picked up along the way. And then at the very end, we'll tie it into a nice little bow, followed by some questions for everybody else. So without further ado, let's jump in. Stand by. There we go. Okay, so that's me. That is me. So I am a wheelchair user. That wasn't always the case, though. When I was 18, I had a major change in my life. And growing up, I was a fiercely independent kid, born and raised in the Seattle area. I'm still in the Seattle area. I remember my dad, he had a shop adjacent to our house, and you would find me out there in that shop, like always working with my hands, like dealing with hammers and nails and screwdrivers and tools, and very inquisitive of trying to understand how things worked, but also always driven to try to put things together. I was very active in the outdoors, loved playing sports. I was playing soccer, I was playing baseball, skiing, loved riding my mountain bike. I was very active in scouts, hiking, climbing, just a real outdoor kid, fiercely independent, and ready to take the world by storm. And when I graduated high school, I ended up going to the University of Washington, which is also in Seattle. And I remember within the first 2 weeks of school, there was an event that really changed my life. And touching on that event, I remember there was one night where I ended up waking up outside screaming for help. I was living in a fraternity, and the way the house was built, it was a 3-story building, and where I was sleeping was in the upper 3, this kind of a dormer, like big room with all these bunk beds where all the freshmen were sleeping. And as I said, there was one night I woke up outside, And I remember I was laying there staring up at the house, not able to get up. And in screaming for help, there was someone on the second floor that heard my cry, and he opened up his window, looked out, saw me outside. I called to him. He came downstairs, and he was standing outside above me, just standing above me, basically saying, "All right, Billy, let's get up. Let's go back inside." And I said, "Well, can you pick me up and take me in?" Well, he listened to me. He picked me up. He took me inside the house, and he put me on the couch where I spent the rest of the night. The next morning, I remember there were people in the house getting up, getting ready to go to school, and they saw that I was still on the couch in the living room. And one of them came over and they said, "All right, Billy, come on, let's get up. We got to go to class." And I didn't move. And then he grabbed my foot, kind of shake me, and I didn't respond. And at that point, there was a recognition that something was terribly wrong. Well, the next thing I remember, I wasn't laying on the couch anymore. I remember being surrounded by some firefighters and some paramedics as they were picking me up out of the couch and putting me on a backboard. The next place I found myself was being lifted and put into the back of an ambulance. I remember being in the ambulance driving to the hospital. I remember being taken out of the ambulance, and I remember going down the hallway of a hospital by the name of Harborview Medical Center and then being lifted onto an operating table. And when I was on that operating table, I remember I was looking up, staring at this big light with this people, all these people surrounding me, which are the nurses and doctors. So at that point, in my mind, all I could think about was I went to bed. I seemed to have woken up outside. I seemed to have a blurry case of being inside the house. And then I seemed to have been magically transported to this hospital. So for me, at that moment, it was like this dream that I wasn't waking up from. And as these doctors and nurses were working around me, I asked the question, I said, "What's going on? Why am I here? Like, what? I don't get it." And I remember there was a nurse that she put into words what I couldn't comprehend. And what she said was, and she said, "Well, last night you fell from a 3-story window. You fell headfirst to concrete and you broke your neck and you broke your back." And as those words were sinking into me, I asked a follow-up question. And the follow-up question was, "Will I walk again?" And then she answered, "No." So in that moment, all I could think about, because my world just came crashing down, all I could think about was this picture. All I could think about was being on the soccer field, kicking the ball to score the goal. All I could think about was being on the ski slopes, jumping off of cornices, and just bombing down the hill. Or being in Hawaii the year prior, the summer prior, actually, because this is in October. It was that summer, hiking and jumping off rocks into what I could only call a pristine lagoon. And then also just spending time with family and being at a summer camp where I worked for 6 summers prior. So this is the world that was in my mind in that moment. This is the world that I was accustomed to. This is the world I was living. But instead, I was dealing with this, what felt like a world that just came crumbling down, a world that was shattered. And when I'm in this space, the question was, how on earth can I pick up the pieces and try to put them back together and move forward? Because this was a life curveball that I was not prepared for. So the question is, when we get a curveball like this, the question is, well, what do you do? And you're really not given a whole lot of options, except for you got to move forward in some way. And it can feel absolutely impossible. So the only way you can really do it is you got to start small. You got to start really, really small with the smallest of victories, kind of ground yourself and move forward the best you can. So that's what happened for me. So I was in the hospital at the University of Washington Medical Center, just off of campus, because I was going to the University of Washington. This was a hospital just off of campus. And I was in that hospital for 5.5 months. I was in that hospital trying to find the wheelchair that would replace my legs, trying to figure out how to use a hand that doesn't have the dexterity to pinch, yet still has a little bit of function to be able to pick up a, a toothbrush or a pen or a fork, and figuring out how to use that in a different way to be able to satisfy the capabilities I had then. Trying to figure out how to dress myself, trying to figure out how to like navigate across the room when it took all the strength of my body to just go a few feet. Uh, it was tough. It was very, very tough. But I will say, I got out of the hospital. I got out of the hospital, and then more things started to come together. I was able to take back the ski slopes. I loved skiing before my injury, and I was destined to try to get back on the ski slopes. So that picture in the middle, you can see I'm in a sit ski. And the way those things work is I'm in a sit ski, there's two skis underneath me. You basically take these outriggers and you just like duct tape them to your arms. You put on your brain bucket, and then you just go bombing down the hill. And you have someone behind you skiing with like a tether to kind of do that e-brake to kind of like, keep your speed in check as you just make turns the best you can. So another picture on the screen right here is in the upper left. You can see I'm in a standing frame. So I'm not able to stand up on my own, but if I'm in a contraption where there's kind of a pedestal underneath my butt, it can kind of like propel me up, and then I can, stretch out my body in a vertical position. And then just being in a wheelchair, just cruising out and being, going to movies and stuff and getting back in activities. So I started getting back out there. And as I got back out there, I ended up going back to school. I moved back into the house that I had fallen out of. It was crazy. The fraternity that I joined, it was the one fraternity on campus that didn't have stairs in front. I mean, just of all the houses, it was the one that didn't have stairs. Just total dumb luck. And that house, it turned out that on the first floor, there was a room that not only a bedroom, but adjacent to that room, it had plumbing that they were able to remodel and make a bathroom that would be accessible for me. So when I was in the house, that's where I spent the rest of my college career, continuing with the college degree that I had just started, which is mechanical engineering, and then ended up graduating from the University of Washington with a mechanical engineering degree in a 5-year plan. So in a 5-year plan, it's a pretty good plan. After getting out of college, during college, I interned a couple of summers at Boeing, and then I went back to that summer camp that I was working at. Prior to injury, I was a lifeguard, but I went back up there more as a counselor, just helping out other kids and just like being very, very active. And then after college, I ended up getting a job with the Federal Aviation Administration. And at the FAA, I was hired as a mechanical engineer to deal with backup power, not with the airplanes per se, but all the stuff on the ground, dealing with air traffic control towers, radar sites, communication sites, that kind of stuff, making sure that the buildings are kept at the right temperature and have backup power. So the stuff inside of them, may it be equipment or may it be people, so it can do its job. I ended up buying a condo in downtown Seattle where I had it kind of set up that I could live independently. I still had people come in to help me, but it was more on an every other day kind of basis. And it was really, really great. And along those same lines, I ended up meeting the love of my life, and then we had the opportunity to travel the world. So here's my wife. Her name's Hillary, and all the places up there. Oh my gosh! Like in the upper left, that's Ireland. The upper middle, that is Moscow, Russia. Good luck getting there now. In the upper right, that's New Zealand. In the middle, that's Paris. In the lower left, that is Iceland. And then in the lower right, that is actually Machu Picchu. And funny story about Machu Picchu has a ton of stairs, so it is not necessarily wheelchair accessible. But I will say, when we were there, it was really cool. We had 4 people that we hired, and each person kind of took a corner of my chair, and they would just pick me up and carry me all around. So I was almost like one of those, I don't even know, like ancient Egyptian kind of things, like being picked up and carried all around Machu Picchu. Is really, really cool. So this is pre-kids. Now my wife and I we have two kids now. We have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. So we are very, very happy and things are going really good. So the wild thing is, of all the stuff I've talked about here, I kind of getting out of the hospital, getting back on the horse to go back to school, getting out of school to get a nice stable job and getting married and getting the house and all sounds really, really good. And I would agree with you. But the wild thing is, over this whole thing, the one thing that was eluding me was my ability to put on my own shoes. And that really bugged me. So, because I mean, I remember I was in the hospital and the solution for shoes was the suggestion was you needed to just oversize and you needed to swap out for someone like myself with limited hand dexterity. You had to swap out the laces to use Velcro. And that idea just really bugged me because that look didn't match my look. It just felt like a real step backwards. And even if I did go the Velcro route, it was still very challenging for myself to be able to shove my foot into a shoe. So the idea was kind of birthed in my mind of like trying to figure out a different way to actually get my foot into a shoe and close it up. So in at a Christmas party in December of 2011, a longtime friend of mine, Mr. Darren Donaldson, he invited me over to his house, and we were just kind of catching up. Darren and I rode the bus together since grade school. And as we were catching up, he was telling me about how he had personally challenged himself, just like as a kind of wild hare, and personally challenged himself to learn how to make shoes. So he took a class, got connected with some folks to be able to make prototypes. He started having some of his own designs. He was kind of moving forward. And as he was telling me this, I got me really excited. And when I threw it, Darren was, I'm like, yo, Darren, since being a chair, like shoes is the one thing I've not gotten sorted. And I bet if there was an idea where, I bet there was, if there was a design where the zipper went on the outside of the shoe around the toe, where the old upper could just fold right over, I bet I'd be able to drop my foot into that and I think I'd be able to have enough hand dexterity to grab that zipper pull with a loop and to be able to close it up, and I could take back that independence. Well, Darren kind of ran with it, and he made a design. He worked with his developers over in China. They sent a prototype to us, and when I tried that shoe on, it was the first time I was able to put my shoes on independently. So the wild thing is, I broke my neck at 18. I put my shoes on again independently at the age of 36. And so for me, like literally half a lifetime later, I was taking back that independence. And the moment was so special to me. We just kind of we knew we had to share it. We just didn't really know what that would look like. Well, when you start breaking out like more of a timeline here, each one of these little buckets right here, I mean, I could talk a long time. So I'll just kind of hit the highlights. In the upper left right there, that little thumbnail, that was the original kind of concept. I mean, you can just see it's a receptacle, it's very simple design. Almost like a Sanook shoe or like a Hey Dude shoe with just a wraparound zipper, like being able to open up. So that whole brainstorm happened over beers. That's what it says. And then we started this company and we didn't really know where it was going to go, but we had kind of a foundation. The wild thing was we did a Kickstarter campaign. I mentioned skiing. We did a Kickstarter campaign for a ski glove that my dad and I kind of invented to be able to allow me to hold on my outriggers without having to do duct tape. Well, that Kickstarter campaign generated $35,000, far exceeded our goal. And that Kickstarter campaign caught the eye of a reality television show. And this reality television show reached out to us going like, hey, well, I see you got these ski gloves. What else do you got? And that's when we talked about the shoes. So we ended up getting on this reality television show. It was by the Oxygen Channel. The show was called Quit Your Day Job. And from that show, we did everything we could to try to leverage the publicity of what could come from that show. So we just kind of put our money in, our own money, into a program of creating more shoes, manufacturing more shoes, and then to be able to do another Kickstarter campaign on the tail end of when the reality show would air to leverage that publicity to get our brand off the ground. Well, we bought 4,200 pairs of shoes. They came in, they delivered. And as we were going through this delivery, we discovered that 80% of them were bad. So it was like $100,000 investment. 80% of them were terrible. But we're also running this Kickstarter campaign. So of that disaster, because I have up there it says disaster strikes, of that disaster, we were able to find enough shoes to satisfy the Kickstarter campaign. But the question was, what do you do next? Because that was an epic fail, total disaster. And the question was like, what do you do next? It's like, well, this is a fun ride up to that point, and I think we're on the right track. But with a failure of that magnitude right out of the gates, the question was like, are we going to throw in the towel, or are we going to try to pick up the pieces and move forward? Well, thinking back to rehab, picking up the pieces to move forward seemed like the best route. So we did what we could. We reached out to our individual network, and we were able to find people that could have uh, that could help us find better manufacturing and to be able to get us connected into stores. And it wasn't like people within our network had the answer, but people within our network, they knew somebody that would maybe know somebody that would be able to get us into the room to have a conversation with somebody that could give us a chance. And there were so many opportunities where people could have said no, but instead they said yes. And like leveraging those chances and those opportunities, in August of 2017, we ended up launching with Nordstrom and we ended up launching with Zappos. And it was right before back to school. We had a quality product, a very small line of quality product, but we had a quality product in kids sizing to be able to launch. And it was absolutely fantastic. And it only kind of went up from there. So I'm going to jump to the next screen because it kind of touches on these next ones where we had some amazing opportunities where all of a sudden we were finally able to quit our day job because it was all the way up to 2018. Darren and I were just working this thing as a side project, kind of like this little side hustle, not really knowing where it was going to go. And then what I'm going to touch on next, there was a key moment that slingshot us into a completely different category. And that was being in the Nordstrom in Minnesota. A mom went in and she had a very positive experience trying to find some shoes for her daughter who happened to wear braces. And I don't wear braces. So this mom, I mean, I remember early on people would reach out to us going like, hey, do your shoes work well with AFOs? And I remember the first time I got that question, I actually had to go to Google to look up what AFO was to understand what that was. I didn't know what it was. And then seeing it's this rigid piece of plastic kind of secure your foot, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have the same challenge I do with having to shove your foot into a shoe. Well, anyway, this particular mom, she went home after this positive experience in Nordstrom, and she said, "Hey, these shoes work amazing." That that Facebook ad was shared 280,000 times within 3 days, and now, Lifetime is well over 500,000 shares. So many different comments. Well, when that happened, the world found out about us. And we didn't have a website at that point. Actually, no, I take that back. We had a website. We didn't have e-commerce running through our website. All we had was Nordstrom and we had Zappos, and they sold out overnight. And it was just such a crazy, amazing moment in time. And it was a matter of calling up the factories, going like, "Oh my goodness, make more shoes," because this is turned into like this. I don't know. It was just really, really exploding, which is just so terrifying, but also so exciting. So over time, we started launching our social channels, did a lot of giveaways along the way, and all that exposure continued to grow. We started to do more events. We were doing events in store. We did events in Nordstrom. We were doing pop-up events. We started collaborating with an entity like through Zappos, kind of a subcategory within Zappos called Zappos Adaptive. We went to this event where we met Shaquille O'Neal. Oh my gosh, that guy is gigantic. So that's not the shoe that we get. We actually gave him a shoe that is in his size 22. I mean, size 22. I mean, that's like a canoe. It's such a big shoe. Um, but by coincidence, the factory we were working with, they happened to make shoes for Shaquille O'Neal, so they had his size. So we made a high top for him, and yeah, it was a big shoe. I'll leave it at that. But anyway, as we continue to grow and like word of mouth is getting out there, it was time to launch a website. So we launched billyfootwear.com and had our e-commerce. And then quickly, people from around the globe were reaching out and buying from the store. So all those countries right there. This slide's a little bit dated, but all those countries right there, they have bought from BillyFootwear.com. And then from that, then all of a sudden there were stores that wanted to carry the shoes. So all these little goat pins are stores around the world that carry the shoes. I mean, all these places don't carry all of the line, but all those little goat pins at least carry some of the line. And the wild thing is, just the other day, I was doing all hands for our company, and one stat is I looked at all the different countries of all the people that have reached out to BillyFootwear.com. It turns out that every planet on, or excuse me, every planet, every country on this planet has reached out to BillyFootwear.com at least once over the course of the last few years. So it just blows my mind. But another great way, as I was mentioning, like just kind of word of mouth getting out, word of mouth has been a tremendously powerful thing. And so many people are talking about the brand, but they're talking about their own personal stories, their connection with the brand, of how they've had some sort of life transfer or like some transformational moment. And I can certainly relate to that because I couldn't put my shoes on independently until these shoes came around. So one thing that's been so exciting is collaborating with so many different nonprofits. So on the screen right there, there's a bunch of nonprofits that we have listed. At this point, it's well over 150. I mean, I would say it's probably upwards of like 250 at this point. I mean, I don't even know. There's so many different chapters. And it's been tremendous because we do our best to try to add value to the worlds of others and work together, not just like a transactional relationship, a collaborative relationship. So we came up with this program where it's more of a discount give back type deal, where members within those organizations are able to buy their shoes from billyfootwear.com at a discount, but then there's a donation mechanism to go back to the nonprofit. Because with each nonprofit, like two life or um, any nonprofit has like really two lifeblood type deals. One is its community itself, and two, some sort of revenue stream. So being able to come together as a community and to be able to have somebody give back to those nonprofits, it's been tremendous because we both win. So as you probably see that smack in the middle of the slide right here, we do have something with the Spina Bifida Association where there is a 10% discount. So if you scan that QR code or go to that link, that billyfootwear.com reference SPAA, it will go to billyfootwear.com where you can buy your shoes at a 10% discount. And if you do buy, 10% goes back to the organization. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already. So as I mentioned, we have lots of collaborations, but that collaboration started to extend to products as well. So the Special Olympics, they reached out. They wanted to have this super colored shoe for the games that happened in Florida a couple years back. And it was awesome. It was really, really cool. We didn't really know how the shoe was going to execute with so much color, but it ended up being this awesome color block, just a really, really beautiful shoe, and it was received really, really well. Another collaboration we did was with a gal out of LA. Her name's Sasha, and Sasha, when she was born, she had a stroke, so she is partially paralyzed on one side. And one of the ways that she like kind of works through her rehab is through having a paintbrush in the weaker side, and then she does splatter art. Well, she was like painting some of her denim shoes and selling it, and then from the money that came from those shoes, it was a give back to Children's Hospital in her area, which is where she did her rehab. Well, we asked Sasha, like, Sasha, why don't you paint a canvas and we can use your artwork to go into a shoe? Well, she did. And the Sasha Splatter was a very, very accessible program. And the Sasha Splatter 2.0 launched a month ago. So it's a pink shoe. It's on our website right now. I actually had dinner with Sasha just the other day. She's just just an amazing, amazing teenage girl, young woman. Along the same lines, working with Lilia, this is another fun one. Lilia, she has Rett syndrome, and she is unable to speak, and she's unable to really move very much. But the way she communicates is through eye gaze. Well, she herself is as an artist, so she uses this eye gaze program to create fractal, like really fractal, like psychedelic artwork. Well, she made a canvas for us as well, which we put onto a shoe, and this was Lily's eye candy. Another collaboration we did for, I mentioned like the AFOs, like all the orthotics. There was a orthopedic clinic that reached out to us from Minnesota, and also in collaboration also with Boston Orthotics. And they were looking for a shoe that married up absolutely beautifully with the orthotics they were producing. So this shoe right here, it's called the Goat. On the screen right there, you just see it in low tops, but we also have high tops as well. But this was really a shoe that was made specifically for braces, and it has tremendous depth. So it's been really, really fun to be able to have this product specific for a certain um, a certain category in more of like the medical space to drive a certain outcome. And then another collaboration that we've done that's ongoing is this one, Codify. This is obviously this is Red Shoe, but we just dropped its inverse the other day, or like maybe about a month ago or so. And instead of black on red, it's red on black. Now, this is the artist right there. He's kind of in the middle with his thumbs up right there. His name's Cody Lee. He won America's Got Talent a number of years ago. And Cody, his superpower is he is an absolute savant when it comes to a piano. He has autism and he's also blind, which is why there's Braille on the side of the shoe. But it's wild, like when he gets behind a piano and he starts singing the songs, his voice is so angelic. It's like as if he can hear a song for the first time and then arguably sing it back better than the artist itself. So our shoes have just been finding their ways all over the place through this word of mouth chain and through these authentic stories from so many. And it's also landed on the Runway of Dreams. So Runway of Dreams, if you're not familiar, it's a it's a show that kicks off Fashion Week every year in New York, and everyone that's on the runway has some disability. So I've been fortunate enough to be on there. I wasn't there as a model, but I was up there as a presenter. But we've had folks up there that have cerebral palsy, spina bifida, spinal cord injury, autism, deaf. I mean, just like, you name it, amputee, like limb difference, like all this stuff. And it's been so exciting to see our shoes on those models. But the thing is, the part that I think warms my heart the most is when we first launched this brand, um, it came from a space where it it came from to overcome a personal need that I had. So it came from like an adaptive, you know, origin, I'd say. And we can certainly satisfy that space, but we're not constrained by it. So we really wanted to create something that worked for everybody because when Darren and I first opted to launch this thing, we remembered being on the playground growing up in elementary school that if a kid was wearing something different, the other kids would remind that kid that they were wearing something different. And that kid oftentimes was hurt by it. I mean, it's bullying, really. The kid that has to wear a functional shoe, they want to wear a shoe just like everybody else. Like seldom, though I remember on the playground, seldom was there a case where there was a kid that would be walking by wanting to wear a pair of shoes or something else that um, that someone else was wearing. So if I myself in a wheelchair, if I was on the playground wearing something, in that scenario, seldom would I have a situation where someone that would be like considered able-bodied would want to wear something I'd be wearing. We want to reverse that narrative. We wanted to create something where if I am in a wheelchair, like out there on the playground, I'm wearing a pair of shoes and someone walks by like going, Billy, wow, where did you get those shoes? I want to wear that too. Instead of me being in the wheelchair staring at everybody else walking by going, I wish I could wear that, but I can't put it on. So what we wanted to do is create something that, as I say, reverse the narrative, but really level the playing field. It's had this situation of absolute inclusion where everybody could wear it, like more of a universal design. That was the picture we were trying to paint. And it warms my heart so much because we're seeing that. So this example right here, here's a situation where a young girl using a wheelchair, she goes to the store, she buys a pair of shoes, and she comes home and she hangs out with her two besties. And her two besties, as besties do, go, wow, I like those shoes. Or I like that dress, or I like that shirt, I like that whatever. I like that backpack. I like that lunchbox. And what do? They go to the store and buy the same thing. So they can wear the same thing and support each other. And just like an absolute beautiful image. So this picture right here, this was I shared on Instagram and I wrote up there, this is inclusion, but those are the words within this post. It says, this is inclusion. When your friends buy the same shoes as you so you can match each other at school. This is what warms my heart because this is what we were trying to do way, way back when. And to see it come to fruition is is pretty cool. And it's happening more and more and more. So another case in point of this idea of like, having something that works for everybody is we were very fortunate to be placed in two movies, probably maybe more at this point, but two movies I certainly know of. One was called We Can Be Heroes. This is on Netflix a couple years ago, maybe. This was, I mean, they're all little superheroes, young kids, different age groups, different ability levels, different skin colors, different backgrounds. But part of their uniform was our gray jersey high top. It was absolutely just awesome. It was part of their uniform. And then the other one was Ghostbusters. This was not the recent Ghostbusters. It was one prior to that. McKenna Grace, the heroine, the young heroine of that movie, she was wearing our red jersey high top as part of her uniform. It was really, 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 really cool. And yeah, actually, funny story. So when we went to the movie, we went to the movie as a team. And as we were watching that movie, like every time the shoes were up on screen, we were like, yay, we were cheering. So they weren't necessarily parts of the movie where one would cheer or whatever. So other people in the audience were just, I'm sure they were very confused, but we certainly got a kick out of it. So because of all these things that happen, I get asked to kind of go around and present and talk about it, which is always fun to do. So next up is I want to kind of like touch on some of these life lessons that I've kind of picked up along the way. Because I mean, I present the story of our brand, and it's as if it's this nice, linear, always moving forward, always moving up. But I can assure you, as life goes, it never is that easy. It's a roller coaster. Life is an absolute roller coaster, and being an entrepreneur is certainly the same way. So I created this slide here, and it's based on a quote by a gentleman by the name of Zig Ziglar. I don't know if you know who Zig Ziglar is, but he wrote a ton of motivational books for business years ago. And one of his famous lines was talking about success, and he says success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. So as anything, talk about like sports analogies. It's like if you're going to perform well in sports, you got to prepare. But you also like as you're preparing, when you're in the game, the opportunity has to present itself that you've prepared for. So in a baseball scenario, it's like, all right, so I've practiced hitting the ball, and the opportunities you have a ball come in that's in the strike zone, and you've prepared for that, you're going to knock it out of the park. That's hence success. That's a very easy analogy, but the same is in life. It's that you got to be constantly in the game. That's why you go to school, like get educated. Like all of a sudden, like to get like some sort of job, you're waiting for that opportunity, and when that opportunity presents itself, you've prepared for it educational wise, or you've interned somewhere to be able to prepare yourself for that opportunity to add value to whatever position you get. So the easy illustration here is opportunity forward arrow, preparation vertical arrow, diagonal arrow going up with success. But we all know as life goes, there's forces that are going in the opposite direction, like pushing you back. And these forces could be either self-inflicted, where it's just like, we get caught in our mind, or it could be external forces that are kind of holding us back. But as we continue to lean in, um, oftentimes, and most often, it's like with patience, we can overcome those. So this um, this quote rings true. Success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. In other words, we got a plan. Well, for as good as that quote is, another quote is from Mike Tyson. And Mike Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. So that kind of brings us to this. So I remember at one point, I used to think that there was really only two lanes, where as you're going down some sort of path, it's either you win or you fail. It's like if you don't win, you fail. And what I've realized is being on this journey called life, but also being on this journey of entrepreneurship, certainly in this business, um, it's a wild ride. There's ups, there's downs, and oftentimes, every time we had some sort of epic fail, on the other side of that epic fail, there was a success waiting. You just kind of had to be patient to be able to and endure to be able to get there. So what I realized is every single one of those fails, like to get to victory, to get to the win, that journey is riddled in failure. So what's going to happen is you're going to have a situation where you're going to fall flat on your face and you got to pick yourself up and kind of regroup and kind of figure out and analyze what went wrong, adjust, and then move forward. And then inevitably there'll be some other challenge that's going to knock you down, and you got to pick yourself up again, dust yourself off, and then continue to move forward. So the name of this presentation has really been reframing those failures. In other words, like reframing any sort of challenge that's coming your way and look at them as opportunities for growth. So the wild thing is, what this implies is every time there's a failure, it's almost like you should be celebrating, going like, "Oh my gosh, I failed! Yay! There's a victory soon to come." Well, of course, like every time we fail, man, it's a jagged pill, and it can take a lot to kind of pick yourself up. But strangely enough, it's kind of been like, from what I can tell, um, you just got to keep moving forward. So, which brings us to this next illustration, which I think is a powerful one. So, I read this book. It's called The Compound Effect, and it was written by Darren Hardy. And in this example, what he talked about was the book was really talking on habits, like good habits and bad habits. So like for example, like when we're born, we're not born with habits. Like we take on habits, and the habits we take on can be a good habit or it can be a bad habit. But as we take on good habits, they can kind of compound on itself. But we're consistent sticking to those habits. They compound on itself, and then it's like it accelerates and like thrusts you forward. Well, unfortunately, the opposite can occur too. So it's important to have these good habits, and it's important to be consistent. And to illustrate the power of having good habits and being consistent, he gave this example of, and it was an example talking about money. And he said, if I were to come to you and I would say, here's the deal, like over 30 days, over 31 days, over a month's time, what would you rather have? I can either give you $2 million today, or I can give you 1 penny today. Tomorrow I'll give you 2 pennies. The next day I'll give you 4 pennies. The next day I'll give you 8 pennies. The next day I'll give you 16 pennies. So basically like doubling pennies like the whole way through. And we'll do that for the course of 31 days. Like what would you rather have? So as I'm sure you're picking up, it's a bit of a trick question right here. That the pennies is the more lucrative route to go. But the thing is, that bends the mind is how on earth can the compounding of pennies possibly ever equate to anything that would come remotely close to $2 million? Well, as you can see in this illustration, you might be doubling like on day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12, 13, 14, but relatively towards like the tail end of the month, you really don't see that relative growth until it really starts taking off around day 25. That's when you actually start to see like it rising. Even though you're like doubling success relatively, you don't see it until you get to the back half of the month. So the question is, can you wait that long? Can you be patient enough to like wait that long, to go that many days? Are you going to grind for 25 days, 26, 28? Well, this is just in days. Now, what if instead of days, what if it was weeks? What if it's months? What if it's years? Instead of 28 days, what if it's 28 years? Well, that's kind of up to you. And it's just a matter of making that choice to stay in the game and move forward. The crazy thing about, I reflect, I saw this thing quite a while ago, and I started reflecting on it. And the crazy thing for me is our business has been growing tremendously. And I started, just out of curiosity, I started wondering, like, you know what? When did I break my neck? And I took it all the way back to like the ground zero. And I went to one of those online day calculators between the date today and like October 9th, 1996. And what I found is I'm in year 28. So I'm in this rapid growth of going up. And it's just so wild to me that that it's like to see this kind of picture. Now, again, like as I talk about the brand, talk about the story, it's not a linear path. It's like all over the place and like ups and downs and just like wanting to throw in the towel, but just like, oh man, just like looking in the rearview mirror, it's like, okay, we've come a long ways. And it's like, you got to stay in the game and keep moving forward. But it's just like a wild ride. But it's just like, it just kind of shows that it seems like if you stay in the game, um, there's gonna be success at the very end. But it all comes down to a choice. And what I want to do is I want to do one more slide here, and then we kind of open up for some questions here. But another book that I read, it was by Andy Andrews, and it was called The Traveler's Gift. And I need to read this. I love this quote, but I don't have it memorized, but so I got to read it. And it says, there comes a time in every person's life where a decision is required. And that decision, should you make it, will have a far-reaching effect on generations yet unborn. There's a thin thread that weaves from only you to hundreds of thousands of lives. Your example, your actions, and yes, even one decision that you make will literally change the world. And then when I reflect on my life, it takes me all the way back to rehab. And I mean, I remember being in the hospital, and I remember that accident just rocked me to the core. I had no idea what the future was going to look like. And when I'm in the hospital, the world is nice and flat. The floor is nice and smooth. Uh, Food is provided to me. There's a gym right down the hall. It was very safe. And then as soon as you get outside those doors, you realize the world's not flat. And it moves fast. And you don't really know. It's very intimidating. And I just didn't know what that was going to look like. And it terrified me. And certainly my mind was still adjusted to my former self. And I would feed myself poison talk like, it's not worth living if you can't walk. Like that's where my mind was at. Like I really just hit rock bottom. I didn't understand. I didn't understand. Um, it was tough. It was emotional. But there were really people around me, like just like they believed in me and saw potential in me. They saw that I could contribute. Um, and they saw it before I saw it. They believed in me before I believed in myself. But it wasn't like they fixed me. It was a matter of they created an environment to empower me to choose to change. And from that, the why me that I kept asking myself, it turned into why not me. It turned into why not me in that it gave me kind of some direction, and it was up to me to try to be, it was an empowering position, and understanding that over the course of time, it's never going to happen as fast as you want, but over the course of time, it might be 5 steps forward, 3 steps back, but over the course of time, you're going to slowly move forward. And we've been very, very fortunate to make that happen. So I guess what I say to you guys is it just kind of takes a choice. I mean, life is not easy. Life is not easy. Life does not discriminate in that kind of way. And we can be in wheelchairs, we can not be in wheelchairs. There are challenges the whole way through, but we can choose to make each day count. And we've definitely kind of injected that into our brand. And the Billy Footwear brand, um, it's like, yes, we want to be successful. We want to be more than that. We want to be a brand of significance. And the way we do that is to strive to add value and, you know, add value to the lives of others and do our best to make that measurable difference in the world 1 foot at a time. So I really thank you guys for listening. Here's some contact information for the brand. And at this point, I was hoping to be able to, Judy, if you can come back on, help facilitate opening up some questions.
Billy, thank you. You've taught all of us something. So what questions do we have out there, y'all?
I can read a couple. There is one that's in the chat, and I know you kind of touched on this a little bit, Billy, but someone was wondering if the shoes are available in children's sizes, and then maybe if you can maybe elaborate on what sizes your shoes are offered in, and do they go down to toddler sizes? Kind of give us the gamut here.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you for that question. So we have a huge size range at this point. So it starts at a toddler 5, and we have shoes that go all the way up to a men's 15. And we have medium width, and it goes all the way up to a men's 6E. So a men's 15 6E, that is a boat of a shoe. But a toddler size 5 medium is a teeny little guy. It's the cutest thing ever. So not all shoes, stretch that whole size and width category. But at this point, we've been fortunate enough to have a little bit of something for everybody.
Wonderful. And then we have another question here. Wondering if you will make either kind of boots or shoes for work for men and women in more neutral colors in the future. That's something that people with AFO struggle to find as well.
So yes, I mean, so we do have. So one of the big questions we get are dress shoes. Do we have dress shoes? And we do have like our shoes at the moment. We do have some full suede shoes, but it's not the dress shoes. That is a request we get quite a bit, and we are looking at getting dress shoes um, to bring into the line. But work boots, I mean, we've had requests for steel-toed boots. We're not there yet. Um, but I mean, we do have some work boot or some boots in there that are considered lug boots. But one thing that will be coming in this fall is some winter boots. We do have some winter boots on the site right now, but they're just in toddler size. But we do have some winter boots coming this fall that'll also be in a wide width, and I know some folks are excited about that.
Oh, awesome. And what about dress shoes for women? Is that in any of your plans?
Yep, so dress shoes, that kind of falls in the category of dress shoes for kids, men's, and
Okay.
women. That is in the works, but it's probably a year out at this point.
Okay. Are people allowed to buy two different sizes of shoes in one pair?
Great question, and the answer is yes. I remember a mom reached out in 2019 asking that question, and we were young and we didn't know quite what that would look like, and we said sure. So we started offering that program. So on the website, if you scroll all the way to the bottom, kind of in the footer, there is a section where it says how to order a single shoe or pair of single shoes in different sizes, and there's a helpful video on there to show you how.
That is so great. And then I think this is the last question that we have on here. At the time of your first Kickstarter, did you have the shoes patented?
Uh, n- let's see. So we did two Kickstarter campaigns. One was a ski glove, and that was really to get the ski pro or the shoe prototype off the ground. When we did the shoe Kickstarter, we had a provisional patent in place. So where the provisional patent works is you basically throw your idea out there and you're protected for 1 year. Um, and then after 1 year, you need to file your full-blown patent application, and then that's kind of in the works. But while it's in the works, even if you haven't gotten the full patent at that time, you're still protected. So that's a lot of words to say. Yes, we did have some patent protection at the time that we launched our Kickstarter campaign.
Thank you. Judy, Juanita, do you see that I'm missing any questions?
I think we
Hi,
got
I
them.
don't, yeah, I think you got the questions, but I think it'd be fun to share a couple of the comments. And I just
agree.
appreciated seeing some of the comments like that you'll be reaching out, someone's going to be reaching out to SBA because they have a donor that wants to purchase about 20 pairs for adults with spina bifida in their clinic. And just comments about how stylish there are. A couple of people have a couple of pairs. People asking for the link, which I know that Stephanie already shared. And there was a Minnesota mom with a girl with AFOs representing. So that was fun, very nice. Thank
Oh,
you.
love it.
Yeah, and I don't know, Stephanie, if you see other comments as well.
I've got this one that someone really loves, the Billy Goats from AFOs, and they recommend those.
I love the
Awesome.
Billy Goat hat, Billy.
Well, a little bit on the logo, I can touch on that. So, we have a lot of things that kind of play on words, and the goat was kind of a two-part meaning. One was, I guess, kind of the silliness of me being Billy and that being a goat, like the Billy Goat. That was one part of it. But really, as a brand, we wanted to, we wanted a logo that just was somewhat of a force to be reckoned with. A deal where it's like, because as I said, life is tough, and so many things you just need to kind of bear down and have that grit and that tenacity, and just you just need to put your head down and just like bash through any challenge that's in its way. And it just felt like a goat was gonna fit the bill. So I think about those goats that scale the Alps, like defying gravity, or like the big ram with the big rack on their head. And having a goat just seemed, it just felt like the most appropriate.
Thank you.